So I wanted to make a video to answer a couple of questions about the teenage engineering OP-1. Namely, is the OP-1 worth it in the year 2021? Is it worth buying new as a beginner synthesist looking to get into synth hardware? Is it worth it for an intermediate or expert user looking to pick up another device or instrument? We'll get into all of that, but to get started, I just want to give a quick rundown of what the OP-1 is for those of you who may not know. So the OP-1 is an all-in-one portable synthesizer, sampler, and controller. Some of the more notable features include about a dozen synth engines, about a half dozen built-in effects, a 4-track digital tape recorder with a 4-channel mixer, a built-in FM radio, and 2 different sampler interfaces. If that sounds like a lot of things, that's because it is. It's commonly referred to as a DAW, or digital audio workstation, in a box. And that's a really good starting point when trying to describe the capabilities of what the instrument can do. In essence, it's a super versatile digital synth and drum machine with a bunch of built-in effects and recording capabilities. It has built-in sequencers that you can program and layer sounds into before you record them to the digital tape. And you can infinitely layer and record to this digital tape and then perform it and save it as a live performance of up to about 6 minutes on the device and then transfer that to your computer. At least that's how I use it. It's really great to work out a quick jam and save it and then use that as a reference when building a track or developing it further in a DAW. So in order to talk about whether or not the OP-1 is worth it, or talking about value at all, we kind of have to bring up the price, right? So as of today, May 15th, 2021, the OP-1 retails for $1,121. This recently dropped from $1,300, which was a price increase that occurred just a couple of years ago from a retail price of about $800. This price increase was not received well by the community, as one can imagine, but that's neither here nor there, and I'm not going to get into that in this video. But this price cut was recently put into effect in celebration of the OP-1's 10-year anniversary. So the OP-1 was released in 2011, and now it's 2021. So from 11 to 21, 1,121. Pretty clever for the price point, I guess, and it knocks off about $180 from the prior retail price, so can't complain about that. So for what it's worth, I purchased mine for the retail price of about $800 right before the price jump happened a couple of years ago. And $800 isn't cheap. It was one of the more expensive purchases I had made in my life to that date. And the decision to buy it wasn't easy, nor was it an impulse decision. I did a ton of research beforehand to the point where I knew that I would be able to open up the box, take it out, and get to work immediately. I felt like I knew the device in and out before I even put my hands on it. This is what I do with pretty much any musical device that I'm buying. I like to feel like I know the device in and out, know how I would implement it into my workflow. I think it really helps to mitigate buyer's remorse if you know exactly how you're going to implement a new tool within your repertoire before you even get your hands on it. So I recommend doing that with any purchase. So in short, to me, the OP-1 is absolutely worth it. It would be absolutely worth it even at the price point of $1,300, which I know is a lot of money. But that's just my opinion, and I'll get into all of the reasons why coming right up. If I lost all of my gear, the OP-1 would definitely be the first thing I would replace, followed immediately by a guitar for the purpose of sampling into the OP-1 for composition. I mean, it's just an incredibly inspirational device. I've written the better part of 2 full-length albums on this thing. And in fact, all of the background music that you're hearing in this video is right from the OP-1. You know, I want to keep it relevant and kind of showcase the music that I'm making when I'm explaining things to you folks. So with that intro out of the way, I want to take some time to talk about and showcase a few of the features of the OP-1 that I really think make it shine and kind of put that stamp of approval of being worth it in 2021. I want to start by talking about the creative workflow on the OP-1. The creative workflow on the OP-1 is very different from most other electronic instruments that you're going to be using. It lends itself to very quick and intuitive sound design, in my opinion. At the most basic level, it can be used as a polyphonic synth, although some might find the 2-octave keyboard a little bit limiting in this context, but as someone who is primarily not a keys player, it's never really impeded anything that I've tried to do with it. So for me, the fun really starts to happen when I find a rhythm or a pad sound or texture, or even just a simple melody that I really like, and you can lay it down onto the tape track. And immediately from there, you can build an idea or a concept or a feeling or mood from that point, the same way you would on a looper, kind of. At least that's how I tend to implement it at first when I'm developing an idea. I think the speed at which you can really drill down into the essence of a certain part of a song on the OP-1 is part of why it's so appealing to me. It's just really quick and immediate to get into something. Once you've established a comfortable workflow for yourself on the device, you can really progress quickly. But that said, this workflow isn't necessarily for everyone. And there are many workflows that you can use to write on the OP-1. The workflow is very flexible and open-ended. It's not super rigid, guided, or defined in any particular way, and this might be challenging for some people. There's more than one way to skin a cow. The sequencers in particular are really not robust by any means, and if you're coming from something that's more sequence-based, like the dig attack, for example, you might be a bit frustrated with the lack of features in each sequencer. There are more creative tools to get you thinking about a melody or progression in a different way rather than to have full control over a pattern that you want to create. I personally got into sequencing by using the Pocket Operator 12 Rhythm. This little guy right here, also by Teenage Engineering. This was my first electronic hardware purchase. And I ended up getting into some more of the heavy lifting type sequencers after I had already bonded closely with the OP-1. So just keep that in mind. Although I'm highlighting the creative workflow and process as a huge pro from my perspective, it might not be for everyone, depending on your background or preferences in general. Okay, so I don't think you can talk about the OP-1 without talking about the portability and the battery life. We can kind of wrap those two into one point here. It's obviously incredibly portable. I mean, look at the thing. Not quite. But it is worth mentioning that you can obviously bring it anywhere, and the battery life is just absolutely insane. I mean, I know everybody mentions it online all the time, but I think the thing is literally just an entire battery pack. Like, I don't know what they put in here. I can use it regularly without charging it for like a month or two. I mean, I've been making a ton of videos on it recently. I don't know if you can see, maybe I can zoom in, but the battery level is still at 2 bars after like multiple weeks of heavy use, playing, tinkering, practicing before I even record these videos. I've brought it with me everywhere. I used to travel for work. I've written jams in airports, on airplanes, in hotel rooms, at the beach, in my car. All of these jams, you know, kind of inspired by my immediate surroundings, which I think is really powerful and special. You can bring the essence of an idea or, you know, sing a melody into your phone or write something in a notebook and bring it to your studio later. But this is one of the only things that you can really fully flush out an idea and just make it happen in the immediate moment. So yeah, you can obviously bring it anywhere you'd like to, and that's a huge perk. Especially if music isn't your full-time job, which I know for most people it's not. It's so useful to be able to bring with you anywhere you go. If you have a break at work and you have an idea that's been in your head all day, during your lunch break, just go to your car and jam it down on the OP-1. I know when I'm at work and drinking a lot of coffee, I get a lot of musical inspiration. I've never played my OP-1 at my desk. You might get some strange looks, but I'm sure people do, and do whatever the hell you want, to be honest. So I also think protection is important when it comes to musical devices and other things in life. And when talking about the portability, I think it's important to talk about case options. So I'll link a handful of trustworthy and very capable options in the description below if you do pick up an OP-1. But I personally have the Mimi antenna case in blue. It is kind of a chunky looking case. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing, but the inner padding is super soft, yet really rigid and thick. I like the extra storage pockets that it has. It's really good to carry around a small notebook, an extra pair of headphones, the USB cable, pens, whatever you might need. I have a headphone splitter that I use in mine in case I want to listen with a friend. I think it's really useful, and again, I definitely think you need a case of some sort if you plan on bringing the device anywhere, which is what it's made for. So the next and final talking point I want to bring up today is the general versatility of the instrument. I think at the end of the day, that's the most powerful thing about it, is that it can kind of do a bit of everything. And in addition to that, it's just so accessible for any kind of musician. I kind of view it as a jack of all trades, master of none type of device. And I think that's a good thing because to my knowledge, there really isn't a huge market for devices like that in this form factor. Definitely let me know if there are any other devices that you would categorize similarly, though. I'd love to chat about it. Back to accessibility. For example, if you're super tired from a long day of work, which I am like every day of my life, but you still want to be musically productive, it's amazing to be able to just grab the OP-1, hop in bed or the couch, and start messing around. I know I don't always feel like booting everything up, or like my modular, as inspiring as that can be, hopping on my computer, opening up Logic, and sitting down and looking at a screen again. Although obviously the OP-1 has a screen, but it's a bit different. And again, back to kind of an idea popping into your head at any given moment, being able to fully flesh it out without having to hop into your DAW and open a bunch of new tracks and whatever your workflow might be there. I think it's just really great to have an all-in-one device for that. When you kind of have a full idea, but might not necessarily have the time or energy to flesh it out at your main workstation, it's great to have a little companion to kind of get that idea down with, and even delve into the idea fully on the OP-1. As I mentioned, I've done that with like 2 full albums. It's so capable. I don't want to undersell what the OP-1 is for, because I think it is capable as a fully fledged music production workstation, to be honest. Also, in terms of versatility and accessibility, I think another incredible component is the interaction and tie between visuals and sound on the instrument. Many people say that the OP-1 isn't an ideal synth for beginners, but I might have to disagree. Maybe it's not perfect to be your first actual musical instrument if you don't know anything about music. But if you're a musician that's looking to dip your toes into electronic music, or you have a general foundation in music and want to learn about music production in general, it's actually kind of the perfect thing for that. Like maybe the most ideal thing you could get to teach yourself about electronic music making. I mean, think about how intimidating and how much of an uphill battle it was to learn the DAW that you might use, or learning how to use a sequencer with tons of menus. The OP-1 keeps it really simple, and if I were to teach anyone about electronic music, I would probably use the OP-1 to start them off. Like when I got it, I was explaining the whole thing to my dad, and he's not a musician, and he was pretty fascinated by it. In terms of the sound of the device and versatility, the presets are actually for the most part kind of cool and easily tweakable if you want to get a unique sound. You can adjust the LFO to any of the parameters or add an effect for some variants. And when adjusting everything, the concept of having the color-coded encoders that match different parameters is just the simplest idea ever. But pretty genius. Like, it makes you think why this hasn't been implemented in other electronic music hardware prior. And maybe it has, but probably not to the extent that it is on the OP-1. You don't have to necessarily know what the name or values of the parameters that you're tweaking are, because you can learn to listen and visualize what's happening as you're changing those values. And if you do want to get more into it, there's actually a pretty in-depth manual on the TE website that talks about the different parameters and what each knob affects in each menu. So there's truly an endless amount of points and reasons I could chat about that make the OP-1 worth it for me in 2021. But I really just want to say that I've clicked and personally bonded with the device over the past few years of owning it. It's definitely not perfect. It's definitely not for synth purists, and it's definitely not cheap by any means, but I absolutely stand behind the value of the instrument and can confidently say that it is worth the full price 10 years after its release in 2021. If you have any questions about learning the OP-1 or have any general tips and tricks you want to share, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to chat with you about it. I'm happy to see so many return viewers come hang out and start discussions. Yeah, it's really meaningful. So let's keep talking about it down there. And as always, thanks for watching, liking, subscribing, and continuing these conversations down in the comments. Well, that's it for this video. As always, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy whatever you've got going on today, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.